Hi and welcome to Candyfloss Crochet. Today I'm going to show you how to join any two items of crochet together using a braided stitch. So it's probably quite difficult to see, but as you can see, this is the braided stitch here. It looks a bit like a braid, hence its name. And I've been joining on to two types of granny squares. So I've got my little ones here against a bigger blanket. So it's quite straightforward, and the only thing I would say and I would recommend is that you do it on a table or on a flat surface. The reason for this is you have to have your yarn traveling underneath. So normally you would have it up in the air behind your work, but you're going to have it behind your work but laying it flat. So I'll get started and show you how to do this. So I've pinned these in place because they're still loose, and I've just sort of started on this corner. I would recommend that you start at a corner and just join with a slip stitch into the corner, and then work along. So I'm going to take this little stitch marker out and I'm going to show you how I do the braided stitch. Okay, so as you can see, my yarn is sort of sitting between the two. Okay, and what you're going to do is go alternatively. So you're having your work right side up, lay flat on the table, and then you're going to work a slip stitch in each side, joining the two as you go. So my next stitch is here. So if you can see, a nice big stitch there to pick up. Just pull my end tighter. I'm going to yarn over, take off the stitch, and then slip stitch one over the other. So a slip stitch, you're taking the one towards the handle of your hook over the one at the front of your hook. So you just slip stitch that one on. Then I'm going to go on to the other side and find the next stitch, which is here, going down from the top, and I'm going to slip stitch, take the stitch off, and then slip stitch one over the other. Okay, split my yarn, there we go. Back over to this side, find the next stitch, pick that one up, pull the stitch through, doesn't want to come off, and then slip stitch one over the other. Back to this side, and you slip stitch in, and you're just working all the way along. So if you can see, my yarn is sort of underneath the work as I work along, so it's easier if you do it in that way, because it's harder when you've got it on your lap or holding it high up. You can't seem to get the stitch. So if you do sit on a sofa, you might want to get a tray or something along those lines, or a few books. It depends how big your piece of work is. So as you can see, I'm just working along, going alternate sides, slip stitch through there, one through there and one through the other, back to the other side, take the stitch off, and then slip stitch one over the other. And as you can see, it gives you a nice braided effect. When you get to the corner, then you're going to work into the corner. Now it depends what you're doing, because every pattern's obviously different and every corner is different. You might want to do a couple of stitches into the corner. So I tend to try and get into the stitch itself rather than going into the corner space. It just depends whether it pulls too much. So I'm just going to show you one more time. So my yarn's behind, I find that stitch on that side, and then I slip stitch over. So that one, yarn over, take the stitch off. Oh, didn't quite come off, and then slip stitch one over the other, and work all the way along your work. It's quite quick once you get going, but it's quite fiddly if you're trying to do it on your lap. There we go. Okay, so that is very quick and easy little join. I think it looks quite effective on the top of my granny squares here, and especially on this colour here, it stands out quite well. I think it looks quite nice. And as you can see, I've still got lots of ends to sew in. What I would do then, I will work all the way around my blanket, and I'll join on my little squares, and then I'm going to work starting at the corners here. So that end out the way. Obviously sew my ends first, and I'm going to join in this corner, and then I'm going to turn it round and work along into the middle here. So just be careful that you don't get too big a gap between them. So I would pin them in place. I've used stitch markers, as you can see up here, to make sure I don't get those gaps in there, and then pin them in place, and then work along joining one side to the other. Just make sure each one's the right side up. And that's it. Very, very simple, very quick, and I think quite effective. Thanks for watching.